Welcome to The Art Box, your podcast dedicated to exploring the vibrant art scene in Nevada and beyond. Join us as we embark on a journey through galleries, theaters, studios, public lands, and streetscapes, meeting the artists, curators, archaeologists, nature lovers, and cultural influencers who shape our creative community and our world. Whether you're looking for your next cultural adventure, seeking inspiration for your own artistic pursuits, or simply curious about the world of art, tune into The Art Box. Together, let's open up a world of creativity and imagination. Let's dive in.
Dreams, what if the night is about you and me? So lift your head up.
Hey everybody, this is Steve from The Art Box. Today we're going to welcome Leigh Ratterman. Leigh, you're going to say, gee, didn't we just hear Leigh? Leigh was on a short episode that we did at the 41st Annual Cowboy Poetry Gathering, episode 405. And she made such an impression, just had to invite her back here for a real episode. Leigh's going to join us today from her home in Arlee, Montana, and I'm in Mesquite, Nevada, so we're doing this over the phone. She's a heck of a cowboy poet, even if she thinks she's just a kind of a cowboy poet. Welcome, Leigh Ratterman, to The Art Box.
Hi, this is Leigh.
Hi, Leigh. You still have a Connecticut number.
I do. Yeah. Guilty, yes.
That's crazy. We had our Florida number for many years. We had our Maryland number for many years until we found
Yeah, it's hard to give up. I mean, probably people would find me, but yeah, it's hard to give up.
Hey, so thank you very much for agreeing to come on the podcast again.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I'm excited.
After our last short podcast, I was just like, oh, she's got to come back on. So, and do you remember Ben Larson?
I do, yeah.
Okay, does he live fairly close?
Yes, he lives maybe an hour and a half from where I do, so
okay,
pretty close.
In Connecticut, that wasn't close.
Exactly, yeah, that gets you almost to Boston.
Yeah. When you get out west, hour and a half, it's like, oh, next door.
Yeah, we're neighbors. It's true.
That's crazy. I had him again, too. So
good.
You were both, maybe had you guys there in that little room both at the same time, but I was just so impressed. You guys are a real spark, and I'm just so happy that you would do this again.
Thank you. I'm glad he got another shot because I listened to his podcast and I totally interrupted it. And in the middle of his podcast, I walk in and you introduce us, and I was like, oh, I stole all of his thunder. So I'm glad he got another shot. Yeah,
and he has, what a story he has. I haven't edited it yet, but I think his will come out and then yours. So in any case, thank you so much. So can I ask some questions?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so you were a child in suburban Connecticut when Dances with Wolves changed everything. What was it about that film? Because I will tell you that our youngest son, he loved Dances with Wolves, and he came on a trip with me one time. I had to go back for work, and he was off of school, so he came with me, and I had to be at work all day, so he stayed in the hotel room. And we got there, and they had Dances with Wolves on, and if you rented it once, you got to watch it the whole day. So when I left, he was watching Dances with Wolves. When I got back that night, he was watching Dances with Wolves.
That's great.
Yeah, so I know. So anyway, there was my question.
I grew up in suburban Connecticut, and my parents both grew up in Connecticut, but had lived in Boston, and I would classify them as more city people, and my extended family as well. And so I would say seeing Dances with Wolves at the age that I did, which was probably late elementary, early middle school, really was my first introduction into the kind of quote unquote the West. And I was just enamored with it, from the landscapes to Kevin Costner's horse. I think the horse's name was Cisco. It was a big buckskin horse, and I always thought I would have a buckskin horse named Cisco, and just everything about it was enamoring to me, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And from there, I got an interest in reading Western books and watching other Western movies, and just kind of from there knew someday I would end up West.
And you did. I mean, that's a heck of a journey for you too. So, and by the way, we named a dog after that Cisco. So
Oh, really? That's great. That's good.
Yeah,
I still have yet to get my buckskin horse named Cisco, but someday.
One day. Well, you're there. You're going to be able to do that.
Yeah, yes.
When you made your way to Montana, which was, you journeyed a little bit there out west and then kind of wandered north. What was the first moment you thought, okay, this is real now?
Ooh, that's a great question. And I don't know if I'm even there yet. I think a lot of times I still feel like I'm kind of living an actress life or something where I'm here and I'm doing it and I'm doing the things I dreamt of, but it still doesn't quite feel real to me. I moved from Connecticut and landed in Boulder, Colorado, which was wonderful at the time, but not quite what I had envisioned. It wasn't Wild West enough for me. And so eventually made my way up here to Montana, which fits the bill. I'm living in rural Montana. I own a little bit of property with my horses and get to do cattle work and all the things that I dreamed of. But a lot of times I still feel like I'm waiting to feel like I belong, or I'm waiting to feel like this is it. I've done it.
Yeah, there's this whole, and I find it with artists, there's this whole imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So where we don't think we're good enough yet, takes a little bit. I don't know what it takes, but yeah, I have this imposter syndrome all the time. So.
Well, that's, I guess, validating to hear, because I feel that every time when I get up on the stage to do my cowboy poetry. I almost want to apologize to the people next to me because they're generational farmers, ranchers, country people. And, I just came into it and I'm learning about it. And I often have that imposter syndrome for sure.
Yeah, and you shouldn't do that. And I'll tell you why I think you shouldn't do it. Because, sure, you're learning from them. You learn from them every day. But I bet that they learn from you every day as well.
Well, I hope so. I think one of the things that I've really loved to do is, so I live in a rural area, but I commute down and I work in the city of Missoula, which isn't a large city by most people's standards, but it is comparatively. And so I have a lot of quote unquote city friends, and it's been really fun to share my poetry with those people because it's kind of their first entry into what is rural life like? What is ranching life like? What does it mean to work a cow, or all of those sorts of things? And so, it's been really fun to kind of help bridge that gap between people who know this lifestyle and people who don't.
Yeah, so you described sitting at the first Arlee gathering that you performed at. You said, I can do this. I should do this. What did that spark feel like in your body?
I think sitting there at that first gathering in Arlee, Montana, which is the town I live in, and just sitting amongst all my community members, it kind of felt to me almost like maybe I had made it in some way to my dream stemming back from Dances with Wolves, is that I was sitting in this room with all of these people wearing cowboy hats and talking about cowboy things. And I just was so excited to even just be an audience member and to be a part of it, that I felt really drawn to wanting to be a bigger part of it and to be connected to the cowboy poetry and all of the kind of Western lifestyle that it involves.
Yeah, I think that took a lot of courage.
Thank you. Yes, after that first gathering, I told myself, okay, next year you're doing this and you're going to write 2 poems and you're going to stand up there and say this in front of all of your community members that you're still trying to get to know and become a part of. And I will not lie that it was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done, is to get up there and grab the microphone and say my poems. But luckily I was able to keep my voice calm. And everybody said they couldn't tell how nervous I was.
Oh,
so that
really?
Felt like a win.
Yeah, because sometimes, and it's happened to me, I can feel my voice shaking. I'm like, oh, my God, everybody hears my voice shaking. They know I'm a rookie, and what is this? And how can I get out of here? Please.
Yes, I understand that.
You said that you write for your dad. When you're on the stage, how do you feel his presence?
Yeah, so I lost my dad in November of 2022 in a very traumatic way. I was back home visiting in Connecticut, and one second we were talking about what we were going to order for dinner. We were going to have Chinese food, and the next minute what I later found out was suffering from a pulmonary embolism and kind of lost his breath and died there right in front of me.
Oh, you were right there.
Yes.
Oh my gracious. I'm so sorry, Leigh.
Thank you. But as horrible as it was, and I would not wish that on anybody, it has shaped me then and now and into the future. And that first gathering that I went to in Arlee, I remember thinking, oh, my dad would love this. My dad always made me feel very validated in the choices that I made. And moving out here and following my dreams, I always felt that he was so proud of me. And so he always wanted to participate in the things that I was interested in doing, whether it was my stint as a rock climber or my stint as a backcountry ultralight backpacker or whatever it was that I was doing. He wanted to be a part of that. And so I know he would love this cowboy poetry thing. And yeah, when I'm up there, I can almost just see him or feel him in the audience and just know that he is proud of me and that I'm continuing to pursue my dreams, not only for myself, but also in honor of him.
And I don't know how you feel, but I still, it's been 39 years here. Now and then when something happens and I'm like, oh, I can hardly wait to get home to call my dad. And that still happens. Is that, I'm sure, just in 22, so that's more prevalent for you, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. The amount of times I've picked up the phone and then it's devastating and then you experience the grief and the loss all over again. And I guess one way I've tried to kind of counter that a little bit is to think to myself, well, I can't call him, but hopefully he's experiencing this with me right now and I don't need to. Maybe there's, some world in which whatever I'm experiencing in life, he's getting to experience with me. And so I do think that for the rest of my life, I will try to live in a way that would make him proud and continue to pursue my dreams because that seemed to be the thing that he, admired most about me.
Yeah, what a dad to kind of get to be interested in what you're interested in. And I found out that there's tears, and then so I'm 74 and I can still cry, but immediately it's followed by a smile. So because I'm glad that I get that memory.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and that's great wisdom from the future because I don't always get there yet, but hopefully someday all the tears will be followed by a smile as well.
So, well, thank you for talking about that. I appreciate it. Material from the range. So you've pulled lambs, you've branded cattle, gathered stock, and puzzled folks. This is what you said by not drinking at the bar. What ranch moment has most surprised you?
I like this one. I'm going to answer with one that might be slightly controversial because one moment that really surprised me is I was over at a neighbor's house and we had a bunch of cows and calves to sort. I think it was shipping day. So the calves were going to be separated and shipped off for their next venue. And
they don't like that, do they?
They don't like that. It's stressful. The mama cows are stressed. The babies are stressed. And the people are stressed. And I think it's no secret to anybody that's sorted cows with anyone that people can get kind of mean sometimes. And they're yelling and they're getting angry at the cows and they're getting angry at you. And God forbid you swing the gate the wrong way. You're going to get yelled at.
I can only imagine the pressure.
Yeah. However, this one day we were there and there were probably, 6 of us, a mix of male and female. And we're about halfway done when the male folk decided, it's time for a beer break. And so they go over to the refrigerator to go grab a Coors Light and left the women folk to continue on while they were gone. And I'll tell you what, we had those cows sorted in no time at all. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody was stressed out. The cows could sense it, and it was actually a very pleasant experience. And so I'm going to say I was really surprised by the fact that traditionally women maybe don't do these sorts of things on the ranch all the time and are expected maybe to cook the lunch or the dinner for after the event. But us women calmly and confidently sorted those cows that day.
And I'm not surprised. First off, us men are such shits.
Well, you said it. I didn't.
I may let that cuss word remain, too.
Yes.
So what's a mistake you made that later became a poem?
Ooh, a mistake I've made that later became a poem.
Or maybe you don't make any mistakes.
Of course I do. I just don't really want to admit it. Well, I would say I wrote a poem called Almost a Cowhand. And it's not necessarily a mistake I made, but it was just an experience I had where I thought I was going to come in and save the day as a cowhand. And things went a little differently than I expected. And so I wrote a poem about it called Almost a Cowhand.
When's the almost or the kinda going to be dropped?
Well, that all goes back to the imposter syndrome. So I call myself kind of cowgirl. It's because I don't know if I'll truly ever feel that I can call myself a cowgirl. And I don't know if it's a title that needs to be given to you by somebody else or one that you can claim yourself. I always feel like I'm an outsider who's helping to the best of my ability. And even in the times when somebody says, hey, go sort that cow, and I know what to do and I sort that cow, I still feel like an outsider in some way and just a kind of cowgirl.
Yeah, but there's got to be when they say go sort that cow and you just go, you don't have to ask directions and you go do it. There's got to be a kind of where you're patting yourself on the back just a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I pat myself on the back all the time, but not publicly. But yeah, I don't know what it would take to not feel like a kind of cowgirl and to feel like a real cowgirl, but I'm not quite there yet.
Well, I think it's come. Since you mentioned it, do you know Annie McKenzie?
No, I don't.
Well, she's up there all the time, and she's been on our podcast a number of times, her and her sister Megan. And Annie says it's a cowboy hat, and her sister Megan says it's a cowgirl hat. What is it to you?
Well, I don't own either one. That kind of goes along with my feeling of a kind of cowgirl, as I've never been brave enough to get myself a cowgirl hat. I'm intimidated by the fact that there's all these bends to the hat rim that mean different things. There's different, thicknesses of the hat. There's the straw hat versus the felt hat. And I'm way too intimidated. I've just stepped into the realm of wearing a wild rag now and then. And that feels a little bit of an imposter to me, but I think I'm slowly getting there.
Oh, that's interesting. So one of the things you said you get your best ideas driving or in the shower.
Yes.
What's the most inconvenient place that inspiration has struck?
The most inconvenient place that inspiration has struck is probably when I'm at a gathering. So recently we were all at the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada, and I'm watching somebody and I'm feeling inspired and I want to sit down. I just want to stop paying attention and kind of start writing my own poem right then and there. But I feel like we need to support each other as artists, and I try to just file it away for later. But I'm at the point in life, which I think probably a lot of people can relate with, where if I don't do something immediately, it's just gone. It's out of my head and it'll never be back. So.
Oh, you just wait till you get my age. And if something pops up in the middle of the night, you got to get up and go write it down real quick.
Yes, exactly.
So if you're on your horse and you're inspired, what do you do?
That has happened one time, and I luckily was inspired in a spot that had a tree that I could get off next to and tie the horse up for a minute and get off and sit in the tall grass and write out what I was thinking.
Oh, okay. That's great. So I notice, well, I've only heard you say a couple poems. I hope you'll recite one today for us. I think everything I've heard you do is kind of for humor. So does humor help you sneak in something deeper? Yeah, I think the humor I inject into some of my poems really just helps illustrate that I feel like an outsider and like I'm still learning. And it's almost a little bit of humility in the fact that I know I'm not one of you, but I'm trying and I'm learning. And so here's a funny little story that I experienced. I wouldn't say it's self-deprecating humor per se, but a little bit along those lines. You talk about, and I like this, keeping a childlike wonder, because my wife accuses me of still being a 12-year-old. Actually, as I was going out the door today, she did. You say stopping for wildflowers and blue skies. Has rural life deepened that wonder? Absolutely. I think there's a connection to nature and kind of the way that nature works when you live in rural life. And, whether you're looking out over the mountains and you know which way that storm is blowing, or even just the other night I was hearing some birds outside that sounded strange. And I was like, oh, the meadowlarks are back. Which was early and strange. And just to kind of feel connected and know that makes me feel like kind of the things that we in life feel are so heavy or important or whatever. I mean, it's not. When you're connected to nature and you understand the seasons and the way that things work and what's going to happen this winter means, we're going to have good crops or good hay in the spring and summer and whatnot, really just helps me feel like I can keep that wonder about the world and curiosity about how things work. Yeah, it's funny that I think when we were kids, we didn't think about that. We just saw things that we wondered about, and now that I'm an adult, I I think I appreciate it more because I take time to think. I kind of thought when I grew up I was going to have to just work all the time and worry about bills and things. And, none of these lighthearted topics they would just go away. But I'm delighted that they're still here.
Absolutely. I think, when we grow up, we're expected to kind of put our heads down and do the daily grind. But when you look up and realize there's just still so much beauty in the world, and there's an opportunity every day to smile or learn something new or experience something new, then life becomes a lot more interesting and worthwhile, in my opinion.
What do you hope audiences feel like when they hear your work?
I hope that when audiences hear my poetry, they feel some sort of connection. I had somebody come up to me after a gathering one time and tell me that my poetry brought him back to when he was a kid and just learning these things, and that it was very nostalgic for him. And so whether it's that or whether it's kind of people who don't know about cowboy poetry or the cowboy lifestyle, that they're learning something new. I hope that people see kind of that I'm genuine and that my poems and my attempts at humor are to really help kind of lighten things up or bring a new perspective to the craft. Maybe some of the old timers don't bring.
Yeah, there you go. I had Brad McMullen, who was the one who kind of led the open mics, and I was complimenting him because, and I forget what he said when you got off, but the fact of the matter that he listened and he got up and he made good comments about what you just did, and every poet. I like that, and
yeah.
And one of the things he said he was trying to get people to, which I did, I hope, was go talk to the poets afterward.
Yeah. I think as a kind of participant in the gatherings and watching poets up there and having the experience of being a poet reading, I mean, it takes a lot to get yourself up there and to share. It's very vulnerable. And it takes everything you have not to do the shaky voice like we were talking about earlier.
You did not have a shaky voice.
Oh, thank you. But when people come up and after and tell you they liked your poetry or have like a specific piece of feedback, that means the world. That's so validating, and it's so encouraging to keep going, because sometimes you could get up there and get off and not know, oh, did I do well, or did people like it or not? And is this, too outrageous for me to do? But then when you get that feedback, it just really means the world.
So what did your first trip to Elko feel like?
Oh my gosh. It felt like something I've been waiting to do for my whole life. I had the opportunity to go with a few friends here from my town in Montana, and they came for the fun of it, but also to support me. And these were ladies I didn't know very well, and they all kind of agreed to it at the last minute. So I had one hotel room booked with 2 beds, and there were 5 of us. I ended up sleeping on the floor of the motel room while they took the beds, and there was laughing and good food and snoring and all kinds of fun stuff. But the event itself was just exactly what I'd been looking for. It was so entertaining. I felt so supported by these poets who are so well known. I mean, I think it's the only event that I know of that you can go and meet your idols and they want to talk to you and they want to support you and they want to give you advice. And it's just such an incredible atmosphere. And the fact that almost 8,000 people show up every year just to kind of watch and participate in different ways is incredible. It's such a cool event.
Yeah, and they're all smiling.
Yes.
And like you said, everybody, I've interviewed a lot of people up there, and it's just from the most famous to the least famous, or not, I should say not least famous, not yet totally famous. Everybody's just, they're ready to talk.
Yes. I mean, you meet people from all over the world and people from all different walks of life and interest areas, and we're all just there to be social. It's such a happy and inclusive event. It's a really great experience.
Did you guys drive down?
Yes. Yep, both years. So I've been 2 years in a row now.
Okay.
And yes, both times drove down.
How long a drive is that? Is that more than a day?
No, it's about 8.5 or 9 hours, depending on how many stops you do.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's doable. It's a long day, but it's worth it.
Yeah, because it just shows you how big Nevada is. It's over 7 hours for me, staying in the same state.
Wow.
So, and you got there all the way from Montana. Wow, Arlee, Montana to boot.
Yes, worth the drive.
You've said you've carried a guitar since 1999. So what's stopping you from learning to play it?
If I knew, I'd be playing, I think. Yeah, I always say that I'm somebody who's tried on a lot of hats. So while I'm not quite wearing my cowgirl hat yet, I've tried on a number of different hats throughout my life. And so one of those personas that I tried on was kind of being an art school hippie musician girl. I was living in Connecticut at the time, going to the University of Connecticut. I actually built a portfolio, applied to art school, got accepted. And that's when I got my guitar because it was going to fit into this persona. Yeah, I've carried it around ever since, and I have intended to learn. And actually, it's funny because after I filled out your form for this interview, I actually have started watching YouTube videos. And this week I picked up my guitar for the first time in many years with the intent that I'm going to learn how to play because it would be so fun to try to put my poems to music. I think one of the things about attending the gathering is you're so inspired, and I'm just really inspired by these musicians who really are writing cowboy poetry, but then putting it to these beautiful melodies.
Yeah. And it's interesting how, because at one time it was just pure cowboy poetry, how music has, what did they tell me that initially all music was relegated to the elementary school. So they didn't even allow it in the venues.
Oh, wow. That's a big change.
Yeah. Did you read your poetry or do you memorize it?
I have a lot of them memorized, but I am so worried about choking on stage that I actually use my phone to kind of read as I'm performing, which I think is a bad form. And I'm really committed this year to memorizing more of my poems confidently so I can get up there and just recite them and actually perform them instead of just read them off of a glowing phone screen.
Yeah, because I guess I'm surprised, and we have a cowboy poetry group in here. Actually, I don't know whether you had met Kathy Smith when she was up there. She's from our
yes,
area. And they did another cowboy poet. They always have one or two every year. And she was telling me how you have to memorize it because people made these up while they were sitting around a campfire. So, but I'm surprised at how many of them, and they shouldn't feel bad about it, get a brain hiccup and stop.
Yes, that's my biggest fear because I don't know how I would recover from that. So, but they always do. I've never heard one that didn't. Right. I agree, but it's awkward for everybody, and I know that they feel terrible, and so that's why I've chickened out every time so far.
Well, there's time. You're still young.
Thank you.
What advice would you give someone who feels like an outsider in a tradition they love?
Yeah, I would say, if possible, the best thing to do is kind of put ego aside and just show up and ask where you can be helpful, ask questions. One of the things I've learned in my attempt to become a good cowhand is that everybody does things differently. And if you don't know, then you don't know. And so I've gotten good at kind of putting aside my ego and just saying, well, why are you doing it this way? Or just really trying to learn the different methodologies and different ways of doing things. And so I think that would be my biggest piece of advice, along with keep showing up. Even if somebody yells at you or makes you feel like you did something wrong, that's normal in this world, I've learned, and just keep going and keep showing up.
So, yeah, I think that's really good advice for anything.
Yeah, sure.
For a brush painter, that's still good advice. Has a listener ever surprised you with what your poem meant to them?
Yes, I have a poem that I wrote. While a lot of my poetry is kind of humor-based, I do have a couple of serious ones, and one poem I wrote is about my Mustang horse that I currently own and how she helped me through the grief related to my dad's death. Somebody came up to me actually at the Elko Poetry Gathering and just said, I'm so grateful that you wrote these words and you put them down, and they just really resonated with me, and I understand how you're feeling. And that was that's probably the best compliment I've ever gotten in my life, is to feel like I elicited a feeling in somebody else that we had in common and that we could kind of share collectively this idea of grief together, and just through something that I created while I was driving around or standing in the shower or wherever I was when I wrote it.
That had to feel really good for your heart.
Absolutely. Yeah, it made me feel very connected, and yeah, it was a really, really touching piece of feedback.
So what's one story that you haven't written yet? And a poem is a story, right?
Yeah.
So what's one story that you haven't written yet, but you will feel called to tell?
I was really inspired by Ben Larson at the gathering, which you mentioned that you had done an additional podcast with him as well.
Oh, you and me both, huh?
Yeah. And I love his cadence and his unique presentation of the poetry. And so I'm currently kind of trying to copy him. I'll admit I'm a fangirl, and I'm writing a poem currently that is almost kind of like circus sideshow inspired, where it's like, come on up, gather around, and is about a story. It's called The Bovine Magician. And it's about a story where I was with a cowboy friend of mine gathering this bull in the backcountry, and this bull was not cooperating. And it almost seemed like this friend of mine was able to kind of whisper to the bull, and it did what he said, and it felt like he was a magician. And so I'm writing that story, but in a kind of interesting cadence that I'm really excited to share when it's done.
Oh, that's cool. I can hardly wait to hear it.
Thank you.
What's inspired you recently?
Yeah. What's inspired me recently?
Want me to tell you what you wrote?
Yes. I think I wrote, I'll have to come up with a good answer later.
I think that is what you said. Yes. You come up with something at the time. You said something like, here. You said, I'm not answering this. No. You said,
I'm not inspired by anything.
I'll have to come up with a good answer for the week that I'm interviewed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to off the cuff answer it then. Is one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is the idea of community and family, and how a lot of times those things are the same, but then a lot of times those things can be separate. And for me, it's very separate because I moved away from all of my family to come out here to Montana, and I've built community that feels like family. And so I've been really inspired to try to figure out how to communicate that, and inspired by people who have welcomed me with open arms and adopted me, quote unquote, into their families. And at the same time, I've been reconnecting with some of my East Coast family. My mom's two sisters and I have kind of reconnected, and we're not connected for any good reason, but just weren't, in touch super often. And so to feel that sense of actual family, blood family, and have that connection, and to really kind of juxtapose it against this idea of community and adopted family. And I think that's what's kind of inspiring me this week.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And I bet your aunts, have they ever been out west?
They have not been out west yet. However, one is coming to visit for a week this come June. And I'm currently putting together all the things that I want her to see in that week's time. And there's going to be a rodeo. There's going to be kind of, intro into dive bar life and all the great food we have out here. And
yeah. Oh my gracious. That is, I bet she's really looking forward to it.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially someone who hasn't been. I've always said when we're looking at some amazing, beautiful geology here, and now we kind of take it for granted, I always say, geez, if we were just dropped in here from back east, it would be like the best thing we ever saw in our entire life. And now we're so used to it, we're just like, Yeah, that's very true. And I keep trying to remind myself that I don't have to come up with something for us to do every single day, because sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee and looking out at the mountains is an experience she's probably never had before in her life, and will be the thing that she remembers, even if we don't do a million different activities throughout the week. Yeah, and maybe she'll go home and write a poem.
Maybe. That would be great.
Okay. You want to recite a poem?
Yes.
And I thank you for this.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. So I had mentioned one of my poems is called Almost a Cowhand. And so I'm going to read that one. And this is a story of gathering cows in the mountains. So up here in kind of mountainous rural Montana, people don't really have land to graze their cattle. They lease land, and that land is often mountainous terrain, steep, full of trees. And so gathering in the fall can be quite an adventure. It might take weeks or months even to find all of the cows that you had put out there. And so I wrote this poem after my first experience gathering cows in the mountains. And this poem is called Almost a Cowhand. The cows are gathered. They're stuffed tightly into the pen. Moms bellowing for their young, testing the fences now and then. The cowboys are standing by while the ranchers count their head, looking at the cows and back at their list. Their eyes slowly start to fill with dread. There's 5 missing, they say. Words nobody wants to hear. 2 pair and a heifer, they say. Or maybe it was that steer. The cowboys mount up to go look, ride hard towards the mountain trees. Not long before they disappear. Just 2 little specks is all you see. We take a little ride in the truck, thinking they could be down by the creek. Lo and behold, there's 5 cows there, laying down, hiding in the thick. There's no way to contact those cowboys. So they say, "Girl, it's up to you. Go on back and grab a horse," they say, "and push these cows right on through." My mind runs through those of Wild West fame. Jim Bridger, Wild Bill, and Calamity Jane. I wonder what my nickname will be as I jump in the saddle and grab the reins. I think, holy smokes, this is it. I'm really going to make my mark. Dear God, I know you're busy. but please help me get these cows in before dark. Loping gently across the open field, I start my horse up the final hill. My heart is beating quick and hard. My mind is racing with the thrill. I'm the Lone Ranger. I'm Billy the Kid, and I'm here to save the day. When I get these cows back home, I can't wait to hear what they're going to say. But just as the cows come into view, my vision is almost blurred as I see those two dang cowboys have beat me to the herd. They have those cows moving. They really don't need my help. I trot slowly along behind as my heart lets out a silent yelp. No fame, no fortune, no song sung by some future band. But I smile, knowing I'll remember fondly the day I almost got to be a cowhand.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Leigh, thank you. You are just a super pleasure, and I really appreciate it. And I'm like pumping my hands here now because I have Leigh and I have Ben in the can, and I'm ready to produce episodes. So I love it. Thank you.
All right. Well, I can't wait to hear it when it comes out. And thank you so much for having me.
All right. You have a great day.
All right. You as well. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Broadcasting from the Mesquite Works Steam Center in the scenic Mojave Desert, the Art Box sponsors thank you for listening. You can find us on Spotify, Samsung, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, and Amazon Music. Please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We are on Facebook and Instagram as The Art Box. We welcome all comments. You can email us at artboxvv@gmail.com. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of its hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of our sponsors.